Alrighty, chapter 29. It wasn't easy to break into Grieper's house. Even though the place was old, scruffy, and unloved, Grieper had locked every single window and door. They went around the house trying everywhere, but nothing would budge. When they reached the window of the room where George had seen Cosmos only that morning, it looked like the great computer was no longer there. "But I saw him," said George. "In that room?" Annie and Susan looked at each other, and Susan bit her lip to try and hide her disappointment. A fat tear snaked down Annie's cheek. "If we can't find Cosmos," she whispered. "Hang on a minute," said Susan. "Shh, you two, listen." They all strained their ears as hard as they could. From somewhere in the room they heard the tiny, faint, mechanical sound of someone singing. "Hey, diddle, diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon." Although technically that would not be possible without a spacesuit because the cow would freeze, the voice added. "It's Cosmos," cried George. "He's singing so we know where to find him. But how are we going to get to him?" "Wait there," said Susan. She vanished off the corner, but in a few minutes later appeared inside the room where Cosmos was singing. She opened the ground floor window very wide so Annie and George could climb through. "How'd you do that?" asked George in wonder. "I should have thought of this before," said Susan. "Graham had left a spare key under a flower pot by the front door. It's what he used to do, so I let myself in." Meanwhile, Annie had to follow the sound of brave Cosmos singing and was rooted around in a big cupboard. She pulled out the cardboard box full of old blankets, threw them out, and at the bottom found Cosmos himself unfolding the screen. She covered it in kisses. "Cosmos, Cosmos, Cosmos, are you all right? We found you. Can you rescue my dad?" "Please plug me in," said Cosmos, who was a bit worse for the wear. At Eric's house, he looked sleek, silver, and shiny, a glossy, well-looked-after computer. Now he was scratched and battered with marks and smudges all over him. "I am exhausted. My batteries are nearly dead." George looked at the spot where he had seen Cosmos earlier that day, and sure enough, there was a computer cable. He attached Cosmos to the cable and heard him take big, thirsty gulps as though he were drinking water. "That's better," sighed Cosmos. "Now, would someone like to tell me what the microchip is going on around here?" "Eric's fallen into a black hole," George told him, "and we need you to get him out," said Annie. "Dear Cosmos, please say you know how." Cosmos made a whirring noise. "I am checking my disks for information. I am searching the files on how to rescue someone from a black hole. Please wait." He made some whirring sounds and then stopped and went silent. "Well," said Annie, sounding worried, "can you?" No," said Cosmos. "Those searches have produced zero information." "But you don't know? But, Cosmos, that means—" Annie couldn't finish the sentence because she threw her arms around her mom and started to cry. "No one has provided me with information about escaping from black holes," said Cosmos apologetically. "I only know how to get into a black hole and not how to get out. I'm not sure it's possible. Eric would have told me if he knew. I am accessing my archive on black holes, gravity, and mass, but I fear none of those files hold the data I need." His drives whirred again, but then he fell silent. Unusual for Cosmos. "So Eric's lost," said Annie's mom, wiping her eyes. "He told me a long time ago that nothing come out of a black hole once it's fallen in." "No," said George, "that's not right. I mean, Eric's changed his mind about black holes. That's what he said in the notes that he wrote for he and Annie and I." "What notes?" said Cosmos. "The ones I found in the back of the new book." "What did the notes say?" Searching in his bag, George tried to remember Eric's exact words. Eric wrote that black holes are not eternal. They somehow spit out everything that falls in. Takes a long time. Radar or something. "Radiation," corrected Cosmos. "Did you have the book? Maybe I can download the information from it and work something out." "Yeah, radiation, that's it," said George, and he had found Eric's big book on black holes and handed it over to Annie. "But, Cosmos, we've got to be quick. As soon as Grieper sees I'm not at school to give my talk, he'll come right back here. We'd be a lot quicker if Eric had bothered to update my system properly in the first place," Cosmos said. "Perhaps he meant to but forgot?" "Typical," said Cosmos. "Do you mind? Could we hurry up?" "Of course," said Cosmos, sounding serious. "Once I have the new information, I can start right away." Annie attached the book to my book port. As quickly as she could, Annie pulled out a clear plastic tray from Cosmos's side, adjusted it until it stood upright. She propped the book on it and pressed the button on the computer. "Ready?" she said. The humming noise of the computer grew louder, and the pages of book started to glow. "Rebooting my memory files on black holes," said Cosmos. "Finished. You were right, George. It is in Eric's new book. I can do it. I can rescue Eric from the black hole." "Then do it," said George, Annie, and her mom as they shouted in unison. Annie pressed the enter key on Cosmos's keyboard, and the portal window appeared in the middle of the room. On the other side, it was a very distorted view of somewhere in outer space. In the middle was a black patch. "That's the black hole," said George. "Correct," said Cosmos. "That's where I left you and Eric." The view seemed still, although nothing was happening. "Cosmos, why aren't you doing anything?" "It takes time," said Cosmos. "I need to pick up all the little things that come out of the black hole. Most of them are so small you can't even see it. If I miss one, I may not be able to reconstruct Eric. I will have to filter out Eric from every object that ever fell in the black hole." "What do you mean, reconstruct?" said Annie's mom. "The black hole expels particles one by one each time a particle goes in. The black hole expels more the next time, so it gets quicker and quicker all the time. I'm fast-forwarding time by billions of years. Please let me work. I need to pick up everything." George, Annie, and her mom fell silent and stared through the window, each willing Cosmos to get it right. After a few minutes, the black hole still looked exactly the same as it had before. But then, as they watched, it started to shrink and the space around it became less and less distorted. Once the black hole had begun shrinking, it got smaller, smaller, faster and faster. Now they could see an enormous number of particles that seemed to be coming from the black hole itself. Cosmos was making a whirring noise that was getting louder and louder as the black hole shrank. The lights on a screen so bright just a minute ago started to flicker and grow dim. The whirring noise suddenly went crunchy and high-pitched alarm rang out from the keyboard. "What's wrong?" Susan looked worried. "It must be all the effort. Even for Cosmos it must be difficult. Do you think he can do it?" said Annie. "We just have to hope," said Susan firmly. Through the window they saw the black hole that was now the size of a tennis ball. "Don't look," said Susan. "Cover your eyes." The black hole became bright and suddenly exploded, disappearing in the most powerful explosion the universe could withstand. Even with their eyes closed, George, Annie, and her mom could see the light. "Hold on, Cosmos!" shouted Annie. Cosmos gave a horrible groan, and a shot of green blaze of light from his screen as some white smoke rose from the circuits. "Yuri!" Cosmos shouted, but his voice was cut off before he reached the end of the word. The light suddenly vanished, and when George opened his eyes, he saw a window that was no longer there, but a doorway that had appeared. It burst open in the room, and in Dr. Creeper's house was flooded with fading light of brilliant light from explosion. Standing in the middle of the doorway was a man in the spacesuit, and behind him a portal doorway opened into a quiet place in space where a black hole was no more.